Jarvis, and once again I want to welcome you to Listen. Black folks still getting murdered. Stand your ground laws. Interesting. You know, I've been a proponent of stand your ground laws as it pertains to black people figuring out how to use that law. Protect yourself. There's a story about a young man in Florida. He was an Air Force vet. Spent a couple tours in Iraq or Afghanistan, and he was a young black person, and he was in a club and a fight broke out, and he went, the story goes, and he went back into his car. He had a CCW, got his weapon and went back in the club looking for his friend. Somebody in the club hit him. He went down, shot at the guy, wounded the guy, and actually wounded 3 other people. Stand your ground. Well, he's in prison for 25 years now, okay? That's what he's looking at. And so a lot of folks were like complaining, especially on Facebook. And you know what, I came up in the 70s, so I've been around a while, and I've seen some stuff, and I've seen some racism, I've seen some bigotry, I've seen some prejudice, and I've seen the actions of folks who just aren't good. And I would identify that when it was time, when it was actually happening. But what was a detriment to even calling out racism and prejudice were all the times that, too many times, that black folks would just decry racism at the drop of a hat, even when they were doing something that was wrong, okay? And so like you know, even today with the new Jim Crow, you know, with the black prisons, you know, full of black folks that really shouldn't be there, or at least white folks aren't going to prison for the same things or getting the same sentences. As black folks, we need to stop committing some of those crimes, okay? We need to start walking right. We need to do what we're supposed to be doing. And we have to be better than the white guy. We just can't say, well, look what he's doing. We have to be better. We can't give them the ammunition to shoot us with, okay? And so I believe in CCWs. I believe that we need to be able to defend ourselves. But I believe the problem with this young airman is that he went back to his car, got a gun, came back into the establishment, and then shot, okay? That's going to be a problem, because that seems kind of premeditated. And as well, alcohol. If you have a CCW, you cannot be buzzed, you cannot be high, you cannot be drinking and handle your weapon, okay? That's just the law. And so he's got a whole lot of things going against him. So what I'm saying is we need to understand the laws. We need to begin to work within the laws and use the laws to our benefit. See, that's what the Black Panther Party of Self-Defense did. There were laws that you could have certain kinds of guns, certain kinds of rifles, that you could defend yourself. And so when the black people of Oakland were being terribly abused by the Oakland police, the black folks began to wise up and work within the law and arm themselves and check the police when the police were out of line, okay? That was the situation. So I'm just suggesting today, now today's a different time. And you can't really check the police with a weapon, because you will get killed, okay? But the police aren't our primary concern right now. Right now our concern are the citizens out there that are walking around with their legal weapons and taking advantage of black people who don't have weapons, okay? So I came up in the 70s, and it was a different time. Actually, white folks were afraid of black people. Now, back in the 70s. Now, they may not admit it now, but it doesn't matter what they admit. They were afraid, okay? And I was a teenager. I was in high school. I graduated in 1976. They were afraid. They were just afraid of black people. They thought every black person could fight. They thought every black person had a knife, you know, just like that. There were white folks that were afraid of me that I knew could whoop me, but because I was black, you know, they thought otherwise. And of course, I took advantage of that. You know, that's like protection. You know, go ahead, believe that, right? And so what you have today, even with this whole, the reason they're clinging to those guns so tight is because the fear is gone. the fear that they have had all of their lives, that they still have. You don't believe me? You don't believe me? Okay, anytime a police officer, say, that shoots and kills a black man that shouldn't have, the black man was unarmed, and then he has to go to court, and then he is acquitted. Why is he acquitted? Because he has convinced this jury that he was afraid for his life. You might say, afraid for your life, but you're the cop. No, but that was a black man. And see, every white juror understands that fear that we know they all had back in the 70s. They still have that fear. So when this white cop that has a gun, has a taser, has backup available, shoots and kills this black man and tells this jury that he was fearing for his life, they believe him. And you know what's even more amazing? It's probably true, because that fear is still in there. And that gun is the only thing that gives folks, I don't know if I can say that, gives folks gonads, that gets rid of that fear, okay? That's why the gun lobby is so strong. Because when you have a man that is fearful, that finally, of a particular people that finally has a gun in his hand, he'll never let that gun go. I mean, I'm the same way. Look, I'm 60 years old. I'm walking around. I got a family. I'm armed. Because I can't fight like I used to. I can't run as fast as I used to. That's what happens when you get old. So you have to have something to alleviate that fear. So, I mean, I'm not even faulting these people for that. I do take issue with the fact that they've been fearful for so many years, but a lot of times fear, where does fear come from? A lot of times fear comes from guilt, okay? Fear comes from believing that this individual is like you, okay? And so there's a lot of guilt going on. I mean, that's anger and negativity that is directed toward black folks. There's a lot of unresolved issues, okay? You take a man, say, that beats up his wife, okay? And then he beats her up again. And she just keeps responding in love, or keeps responding, you know, as far as that's terrible, you shouldn't do that. She doesn't fight back. She can't fight back. And he has an opportunity to make it right. I was wrong, I'm sorry. But he doesn't make it right. And so every time he sees her, he's going to feel guilty. He's going to feel sorry, if he's any kind of human being at all. But eventually, if he never reconciles that feeling of guilt, that he is going to begin to reject this individual. He's going to begin to reject his wife because of the feeling that it gives him. He's going to be, you know, going to be able to, like, man, just be really negatively turned off even in her presence, because every time he's around her, he realizes what he did to her. It's never been resolved. Okay? So then what does that end up turning into? First it's the sorrow, then it's the guilt, then it's the rejecting the source of this guilt. And if that source of guilt is constantly and continually still there, that emotion is going to turn into anger and hate, which is a result of those unresolved issues, which initiated with simply being sorry. Okay, so what you have in America today is an evolution of an emotion that was initially sorrowful, and then it turned into guilt, and then it turned into rejection, and then it turned into anger and hate. And if it had been dealt with at any point along that path of emotion, it would have been okay right now. So that's what you have. And so then now these folks that are angry have guns. And the folks that they used to be afraid of are unarmed. And so you might find this skinny little nerd, you know, guy with a gun that ends up shooting a man that could have pounded him if they had been face to face, fist to fist, okay? And that's the situation we got there. We just need to realize that. And so my remedy is that black people simply need to get armed. And see, I'm not a proponent of violence. It's like the arms race, you know? It's like this country, it's like the Soviet Union has nuclear arsenals, and we have a nuclear arsenal. And nobody's going to get rid of their nuclear arsenal because they don't want to be just the one without a nuclear arsenal. Now the Soviets, they're not going to shoot at the United States because they know the United States will shoot back at them. And the United States is going to shoot at the Soviets because the Soviets know, because the United States knows, it's going to go either way, back and forth. So, but the fact that both of them are armed deters the other one from being the bully, from taking aggression, okay? And it's the same thing then with the guns in the street. When you have an entire group of people that are basically armed, and another group of people that are not armed, who they hate, who they've wronged for hundreds of years, never made it right, and those emotions have morphed into hate with a gun in your hand and fear of the individual. That's a remedy for disaster, and the result is exactly what we're seeing today: black folks being shot down in the street, being claimed that it was standing their ground because they were in fear for their life. And the juries believe it because they probably were in fear for their life because of that deep-seated fear. Okay, so I'm just suggesting that as black people, we need to get armed legally within the law. And and when I say within the law, that means we can't be like that airman that was drinking in a club, went out to his car, got his gun, went back to the establishment where there was some trouble going on. We have to work within the law, stay legal. And you know, every program for probably the past 8 years that I've been putting out here is we're kind of at war. Now, we're not in a war, you know, with the bullets and the mortars and bombs and all that stuff, but we're in a war of trying to make sure that we are treated properly. And so what I'm suggesting is there's no time for drugs. There's no time for alcohol. That's R&R. That's rest and relaxation. That's when you're not in the battle anymore. But we're in the battle. Come on now, you know you're driving down the street as a black man, you have to look up in your rearview mirror, and there's a police officer, you know, in your rearview mirror. I don't care, like me, I haven't had a ticket in 7 years. Automatically you're going to start thinking these thoughts just being a black man. And so I'm just saying, you know, we have to begin to start doing right, taking care of our business, and being armed. And every other way, you know, get healthy, get educated, all that stuff we're always talking about. But it's different for us. I've always took issue with black folks over the years, and you know, because I've put it on my program, I put it on Facebook, on the internet and all that, the black proponents of the gun laws. Now, I have good friends that are out there trying to get the gun restrictions, gun laws and all that, but I've never agreed with that. I'm a gun owner. I'm an AR, I'm a shotgun Glock, I'm a gun owner, a legal gun owner. You have to be, because my position as far as black folks are concerned is that you're pushing for the spigot to be shut off on guns so people can't buy guns. Well, you know, the people that don't like you already have guns, okay? So if that spigot's ever shut off, the only person that's going to be unarmed is you. So what good is that gun? Nah, I don't believe in that. I believe in the Second Amendment. As perverted and twisted as those loudmouth right-wingers have perverted the Second Amendment, you know, I'm going to embrace that because that's where your protection is. Look. Do you remember when Obama was running the first time, and he was saying that they needed to check. They needed to have campaign finance laws that limited the amount of money that a candidate can get from those PACs and super PACs, people trying to get them elected. And of course, you know, that's a multi-million-dollar fund that you'd be cutting off. Well, I remember Sean Hannity checked Obama and said, because Obama was still taking money while he was saying we needed to stop. And he said, well, how come you're still taking that money? I thought you said that you didn't believe in candidates getting millions of dollars from those particular organizations. And Obama was like, I don't believe that candidates should be getting all this money from organizations trying to get them elected. But if you guys are going to continue getting all that money, I'd be stupid not to get that money myself. Same thing. You know, it's one thing. Now, if you could have a gun law that would get rid of all of the guns in the United States where nobody could own one, then okay, that's fine. But if folks are going to be owning guns, you better have one. I'm saying with the attitude and the environment that we have in this country today, a black man is foolish for not having protection to be able to protect himself and his family in the society in which we live in today, because the ills are tremendous, okay? But just do it right. And I would love to see black folks wake up and begin to get off, because you know we can do it right. You know, if we ever came to the point as black people where we said, yeah, we need to get armed, we're going to have some cool guns, you know. We got pearl handle, velvet, you know, look at all this, have little names or tattoos on the side or engraving, maybe Nike or something, or engraved on the barrel or something, but we're going to have some cool stuff. And that's what we need to have. Not to go out taking somebody's life. And see, that's another thing. As black people, now look, I know white folks are watching this program, and I usually don't participate in this conversation with white folks. But, oh well. Black folks, we need to stop killing ourselves. We need to chill with the black on black crime. You go to a club and two black people end up fighting somebody. We cannot do that. See, we talk about, especially when we're high, you know, we talk about stuff, how the white man has infused drugs into the community, and that has been the downfall of the black community, like the crack cocaine, and you know what, it's probably true. But you know what's more detrimental to black people than the drugs that were infused into our communities is the lack of cohesiveness, the lack of oneness, the division that we have toward one another as black people. We're not together on this. We kill each other. We don't mind stealing from each other. We are so divided. We couldn't defend ourselves as a people if we needed to. And see, that is more of a detriment, and that was an intentional infusion into our community. It was the division. Look, through the slave trade, through the plantations, they would make sure, first of all, that they would put people from different tribes with different groups. They would make sure people could not communicate with to the best of their ability, okay? Of course, eventually, you know, everyone did, but that was the intent, to keep them divided, to keep them from being able to communicate. They would even have fight clubs. You know how we see them fighting those dogs today? And fighting them chickens? Well, they were fighting Negroes back in the day. And who wouldn't? If you were strong, if you could survive and realize that you would be treated well, you probably would. So they encouraged division among black people all throughout history. So what do we have today? So we have the gangs that wear the blue colors. We have the gangs that wear the reds. We have this kind of gang, that kind of gang. I know in Dayton we have a whole bunch of gangs all over this nation, okay? But all I'm saying is that's a division. That's an intentional division. You want to call the welfare system a way to divide people, a way to keep people under, keep people subjected because they need to be fed, you know, by the man. You want to talk about the drugs being infused into the community to keep people focused on self-destructive traits that are keeping them from functioning in any kind of successful way? Well, I want to suggest to you that the division of black people in this nation, the negative attitude that we have toward each other, is more divisive and more destructive than the drugs, than anything else that we can imagine, because there is no cohesiveness. A nation divided against itself cannot stand. As Abraham Lincoln, I believe that's a biblical verse as well. If we are divided, we cannot stand. And so as long as we are killing each other, as long as we are stealing from each other, as long as we are divided, we'll never be worth of anything. The power even in the civil rights movement was the cohesiveness of the groups. You had people like Stokely Carmichael. You had people like Malcolm X. You had people like Martin Luther King Jr. whose views were diametrically opposed to each other, but they came to a point to realize that if anything was going to be accomplished, they had to come together in unity, and that's what they did. And so we have allowed ourselves to be disunified, to be segmented, and to where we have no strength. It's like your hand. I mean, you ever heard the thing, a three-stranded cord, as strong as a three-stranded cord is? You could take one string and pull it and break it. You could take three of the same strings and twist them together, and they can't be broken. There was a strength in unity, and we don't have that strength. So it seems like the only strength, the only power we have today in America is that we can get on the internet, on Facebook, and type SMH. Look what they did to us. How could they do that to us? How terrible those people are. What good is that doing? Nothing. We need to suck it up, get strong. I suggested the other day, to somebody that how we needed to do this, we need to just get armed, get confidence, do right, and just protect ourselves if the need arose. Well, look, anytime somebody, a black person tries to stand, they end up going to jail. No, you cannot have a defeatist attitude. Look, today we are riding, our successes today, our liberties today are riding on the coattails of the sacrifices of scores and scores of black people and others who sacrificed themselves, their lives, their well-being, their livelihood, so we can be well today. So what are we willing to sacrifice? So we need to stand up for ourselves. We need to defend ourselves. We need to stand our own ground, and there will be battles lost. We will go to court when we are right, and we will lose at times. But perseverance. We have become such a weak generation that we believe that posting a post and putting SMH on there is somehow participating in a movement to help free the black people from bondage that we're experiencing in this nation, but it's not. And if you can do nothing else but simply defend yourself, if we can have a nation of black people that are all defending themselves, we won't have many of the issues that we're having today. Look at the Wild West. You know what you don't see in the Wild West in the movies, the pictures, or even the history books? Is that a third of all the cowboys were black. And they were tough. They were strong. They were roping steer. They were the best bronco riders. Those were the black folks. Did you know that the Lone Ranger, remember the Lone Ranger and Tonto, the series that we had, all those years, that lawman that would go out and bring in, there was a real Lone Ranger. He was a black man. For real. Because black folks. You see us, when we play basketball, black folks didn't invent basketball. But who's the greatest at basketball? Who's the greatest at football? Black folks didn't play football either. But we took it and we perfected it. What do you think we'd do if we had guns and we were arming ourselves? We'd get good. And the point is not that we would be bullies, not that we would take over or be wrong type people, but that we'd be able to protect ourselves. And what I'm suggesting this is, right now what you have today, you have people that will have no problem walking up to a black person and punking them and even starting a fight so they can exercise their right to stand ground. Because they pretty much know that as a black man, you're probably not carrying a gun. But as black people begin to arm ourselves legally and carrying the correct kind of way, there'll be less of this type bullying because folks won't know which black man is carrying a gun. And they're not going to affect you like that. Bullies are cowards. And their only strength lies when they believe that you can't defend yourself. So these little skinny guys that are walking up and shooting big brothers who were standing in the street with the waving their hands and all, they're going to think twice. They're not going to even attempt to bully a black man if they don't know at all whether this black man is. Be like the old days when they think that every black man had a knife. You don't know how many times in the 70s somebody needed a knife and a white guy would say, "Hey, can I use your knife?" I'm like, "I don't have a knife." Let them be that way about guns, and there'll be less bullying toward black folks, for real. And I'm just saying anyway, man. I mean, especially the way digital media is archived today. That anything that you put on the internet lasts forever. I would rather not my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren have to look at still images or videos of me with my hands up begging for my life just before I'm shot than to see me actually defending myself and then getting shot. If I have to get shot, at least I want to get shot on my feet, not on my knees. That's what I'm saying. And hopefully that everyone will just wise up and just begin to treat each other right. Because that truly is the American way. Because when I talk about the division, there is no strength in division of a people. There is no strength when a nation is divided. And so even as I look at the news right now and the war, the tariff wars and all the negative rhetoric between our nation and China, our nation and the European Union, our nation and Canada, our nation and the world. And then at the same time we have a weakened nation because there is no cohesion in this nation. We are at a very vulnerable point right now. And so without trying to get too political, we see the accusations against the Soviet Union of hacking into our political system. And then we see even the relationship that our administration is having with the Soviets. Now that's one thing. And as an ex-military, that's not a good thing. But then we look at the situation where they've understood that the Soviets were infiltrating like Facebook and creating fake posts to foment disunity between the races. So a lot of the harsh, racist, hate-filled rhetoric even that we have between groups, you know, the hate for each other, has been created by external forces that are intentionally helping to create a division in this nation among its citizens, okay? So you have external forces trying to affect our government outwardly, and you have those same internal forces trying to divide our nation internally. And that is not a recipe for a positive end. So you know, I don't know what conclusion you might personally come to as far as this program is concerned. Hopefully not simply based on a political agenda, because I am not political. Yeah, I voted for Obama simply because we needed a black man in there, and his brother was intelligent, and his intelligence far superseded anybody he was running against. But black young kids needed to see that a black man could be president of the United States. So I'm not political. I never was, and I'm still not. That was a social situation that we needed to have, okay? But right now, we're at a place where our nation is in jeopardy. And what I'm suggesting from my end is an internal fix, because if we can, as black people, can get ourselves out of this vulnerable situation that we're in, to be bullied and murdered and our murders celebrated. I remember this one lady posted on Facebook that she thanked God for the bullet that kills Trayvon Martin. For real, it's on YouTube. Look it up. Okay? And so I'm saying is our wellness will cure them of their illness, because they'll wake up. This man that feels all emboldened to go, you know, shoot this black man, if he thinks a black man has a gun, he's not going to feel emboldened anymore. It's easy to be bold with a gun if you don't think anybody's going to be shooting back. So if our getting ourselves together and ourselves armed legally to defend ourselves against folks who have an evil intent on doing us harm, they will be cured. All of a sudden that boldness will begin to dissipate, and they'll be back to themselves again. And then we can live in peace. But as long as they are the only ones armed, that's like saying the Soviet Union. As long as the Soviet Union, suppose the Soviet Union simply had nuclear weapons and we had none, do you think that would be okay? Why not? So in our society today, if you have this one part of society that is anger and hate-filled, and they're the only ones with guns, do you think that's going to be okay? It's the same situation. It's not. There has to be a balance of power in order to make both sides act right. That's all I'm saying. Okay? Well, anyway, I do want to thank you once again for taking the time to listen. And I want to invite you to listen again. You take care. Bye.